Ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to episode 5 of the ReModCast. We welcome everyone from the Renovation Nation with your host, Norm Rieger. Norm, how you doing?
Doing great. What's going on, Doug?
We got a lot of things going on. For one,
Okay.
For the first time ever, we're live on Instagram as well. So it's a new feature. So we're live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So if you guys at home have a question, comment, concern, please put in the comment section because on today's episode, we have a lot of viewer questions.
All right. Instagram. Welcome to the ReModCast. Let's get some action.
Absolutely. So before we dive into the questions, why don't you give us like a little quick update on what's kind of going on?
All right. Well, right now it's the end of January, or the last day of January today, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're having a good winter. Weather hasn't been really good to us in January. We had some projects that we started that probably shouldn't have been winter projects, but we had to start them anyway in December.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting through them. But there's delays, and that's something that people should expect or be aware of when they want to do exterior renovations throughout the winter. We can do it. We are weather driven. I always say, not calendar driven.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll never tell people we can't do this in January or we can't do this in February, because sometimes you get a really good January. Last year we had a great January.
Mm-hmm.
So we are weather driven. So if you want to take the risk to start exterior work, you got to be prepared for some weather delays, especially during January and February, because it is common to have snowstorms. It is common to have rain. It's common to have frozen ground. So that's what we're dealing with right now. We still have our breadth of interior projects going on, and we're trying to get people to wake up out of their winter hibernation, start thinking about their spring projects now, instead of, I always say, plan ahead. You don't want to wait until March and April to call me for the job you want to do in the spring, because when we're in March and April, spring is here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're dealing with reputable contractors, they're hopefully booked out 2 to 3 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking for an expansion project that involves blueprints and architects and so forth, you certainly want to get a hold of us, 6 to 8 months in advance.
Absolutely. I'll just check in, making sure B-Rock, that red button pressed over there, just making sure everything is working smoothly. Good stuff. So yeah, so right now we're coming to the end of winter.
No, I say we're still midwinter, in my opinion. Because I remember years ago, I always felt like the landscapers came out around St. Patty's Day. So around like March 15th, March 17th is sort of when, the first spring cleanup started happening. But I found in the last few years, do you feel like, I don't know if anybody else feels like this, that the calendar has shifted a little bit? When I was growing up, it felt like winter started in November.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the winter coats were. Sometimes you had to wear an ugly coat over your Halloween costume when you didn't want to, and October 31st. And winter was November, December, January, February. March started to become a windy bit of spring, and then April was spring.
Yeah.
I feel like in the last 5 to 7 years that winter has started a month later. Like winter doesn't really come till December, but it also hangs on till April.
Yeah.
I feel like we almost had a little calendar shift, climatic.
Like the peak of winter is February.
Yeah, absolutely. The beginning of, like, right now is technically peak winter. So this is a great time if you're thinking about a summer project or something you want to happen. Look, everybody wants their project to happen between June and September. They're like, well, the kids are out of school. We have a house down the shore. We're going to do it. That's great. But most of these type of projects don't only last 8 weeks. So be realistic with your expectations of what you can accomplish from June 21st to September 3rd, because it is a finite window and everybody wants that spot. So if you do want a June spot, I'm not saying we can't do your renovation in June. You got to call me now.
Yeah.
You can't wait till April or May, because then June is gone, because June is a very covetable month. June, January, and September seem to be the 3 most requested start months, because they're usually like life-changing months. September, the kids go back to school or go back to college. So now you can do your kitchen renovation. June, the kids are out of school, so you don't have the commute and everybody get ready in the morning. So there's those times that people request. And January is usually people who want to do a winter project, but want to push it till after the holidays, whatever those holidays are.
Yeah.
So January, June, and September, if you want one of those months, you want to get in line early.
Awesome. So that's the time frame that we're at right now. Are there certain projects that, if you're listening to you right now, that you should think about? So if you're aiming for like a June deck, right, or like a kitchen renovate, like, or a bathroom, like right now, is there a certain project that if you're thinking about doing it, now's the time to talk to you?
You know what? There's not a certain project, but I'll say it's a certain level of project. So if you want to do a project that's I would call a medium-sized renovation, whether that's a deck, a kitchen, a bathroom, a finished basement, those projects take about 2 months to do on average. They can take 3, but it's about a 2-month project. The deck's probably only about less than a month. You want to plan for those 2 to 3 months in advance. So it's not necessarily that I want you thinking about decks in February, but I want you to think about anything in February that you want to get use out of this summer. So if you want your kitchen done before the kids get out of school, if you want your bathroom done before your au pair comes in or your relatives come in and you want the use of that bathroom in the summer, you got to be calling your contractor now, January, February.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I do want to remind you guys that we are live. So if you have a question, comment, concern, you could put it in the comment section right now. We could pull it up and answer your questions live with Norm from HH Remodeling. Anything else on the updates side of things before we get to some of our viewer questions?
No, I don't have any specific projects to update you on. We have our crews back in full swing. We had a couple, we had some winter illnesses. We had some people on leave. So we're back to a full staff, which I'm happy to report. Jobs are going well. The blueprints are coming in like crazy right now, which I'm very surprised. The month of January, I think I received 12 to 15 new blueprints sent to me. And I will tell you out there, I don't do what's called blind bids. So very often I'll have an architect or a client or a potential client, somebody I don't know, say, hey, Norm, I got your name off of Facebook. I've attached my copy of my architectural drawings. Can you bid this job? The short answer is no, not based on that. Because if you're asking me, who you never met, to bid a job, and by the way, it takes about 30 hours to take a blueprint, send it out to your vendors and your subs, do takeoffs and measure with a measuring tool for the linear feet of molding, to count the number of windows, count the electrical outlets, measure the square footage of hardwood flooring. It takes 30 hours or so to actually put one of these together. So, and if someone just wants me to give them a number, then that's all they're looking for is a number. And I'm never going to get hired for my number. I get hired because my number's competitive, but I never get hired because I'm the lowest bidder. And when someone just sends you a set of plans and wants a number, they're just compiling numbers. They're not interviewing contractors. And the clients that we tend to work with best and the ones that select us are the ones that, interview us, that they look up my social media. They see our podcast. They see our videos. They ask the right questions. They have me in their home. We talk about the existing conditions, not just what it's going to look like on a piece of paper. Because if you're bidding a renovation job, not new construction. A new home is different. But if you're taking a renovation and you're looking at a set of blueprints and it's showing, well, here's a new kitchen and here's the addition on the second floor and here's the addition over the garage, and you don't visit the site to talk to the homeowners and look inside and see what kind of heating and cooling system is it? Is it full of plaster? Is it full of asbestos? What are the existing site conditions? Then you're doing them a disservice by bidding that job anyway. So we're getting lots of plans coming in. I'm excited about it, but those plans are vetted plans, people who have either been recommended by either Facebook community groups or people we know or architects that we work with. They want to meet me. They want to interview me. They want to ask the hard questions, all the questions we always get asked. Do you subcontract the work? Are you there every day? Do you leave the job? Do you take big deposits and not come back? All the stuff people are fearful of contractors from over the years of bad reputation. But when they take the time to feel like they want to get to know the company and ask questions about the process, I feel more comfortable bidding. But I'm not going to just give you a number, because then I'm just a number.
Could that be a red flag if someone's getting bids from contractors that have sight unseen, just like, oh yeah, new bathroom, yeah, that's X amount of money? Like, is that a red flag?
Well, it's a red flag to me because we're at a point in our company development that we don't have to take every job that comes our way. But it's very, very common. So it's probably more common than not for people to do that. Right. So it's very common. People just, they get the lowest bidder. And then they feel, well, if they check a couple references, I would say, Doug, in 19 years of doing this, I've been asked for my insurance certificate less than 20 times. Less than 20 times have people even checked that I have insurance. So you can imagine what they're hiring out there. You know, and I'm a legit pretty by the book kind of guy. We pay our taxes. You know, we're not doing cash jobs. We're not hiring day laborers. We're paying a little extra for subcontractors even because we need that quality level of supervision even between the GC and the subcontracting crew. I could go hire a bunch of guys in a white van with ladder racks that'll do the siding. And I could watch them do the siding, and I would order the materials, and I would pay for the materials, and I'd pay them cash at the end of the day. And I could probably do a siding job and make another $5,000 to $10,000 profit. But I hire quality subcontractors that have a manager that he's doing that. I don't want to do the manager's job. I want to pay to make sure somebody else besides me is ensuring quality control. So that's kind of part of the premium you're paying for hiring a legit vetted company with a good reputation. Is you're getting a package of management and supervision and quality control. And if you just want a low number, sometimes there's a good place for that. If you need somebody to paint your bedroom and some guy wants to paint it for $300 cash, there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging you. Just a company like mine can't afford to do that because of overhead and payroll taxes and so forth. So there's a place for the lowest bidder, but you got to be careful when you select that option.
Very true. Very true. So we have some questions coming in live right now. So let's start.
We have live questions.
We have a live question.
Come on,
Hillary's watching live. Our good friend Hillary is watching live.
Hillary.
And Hillary asks, "Are barn doors still popular, or is there more of a current style? Are barn doors still popular, or is there a more current style?"
As far as door trends go, Hillary, a barn door is still the thing people want. So it's not the most practical door, but it's probably the coolest looking door. And when people call them barn doors, sometimes they're visualizing, this door that looks like, wood that's kind of weathered and it's got battens, diagonal going across it. But what we in the industry consider barn doors is any door that hangs on a track that covers an opening that you push that door, and instead of sliding inside the wall, it's sliding on the outside of the wall. So as a contractor, when you tell me you're interested in a barn door, it doesn't matter if it's a plain white vanilla slab door or if it's some really cool knotty alder weathered wood with wormholes in it kind of door. It's the track and the hardware. But yeah, Hillary, the barn door is still the door that people want for a specialty location, whether it's to cover a pantry or a laundry room. They're not good for privacy, so you don't typically use a barn door for a bathroom or a bedroom because that door actually hangs off the wall about 2 inches. So there's a gap. So it's not a privacy door, but it's good for a feature location, like I mentioned.
Awesome. So barn door is on a track that's outside of the wall. We went to a place, I believe in Whitecoff, and you were showing me a door that was actually inside the walls. Would that be something called different?
Yeah, that's called a pocket door.
There you go.
And those used to be really popular in the 50s, but they're coming back now because they're space savers. So if you could walk into a 1950s split level in New Jersey, you'll find a lot of the kitchens, even if you don't see them anymore, they covered it. There was a door that separated the kitchen at the bottom of the stairs before you went up to the bedroom level, and you pull that door out of the wall and separated the kitchen. People wanted that in the 50s and 60s. Then eventually people renovated and they're like, I don't want this anymore, and they would just bury the door in the wall. We get called on to do pocket doors more often now because think about a small bathroom. Your door either is going to swing in and it's going to hit or come close to the vanity or the toilet if it's a small bathroom, or it's going to swing out into your bedroom and takes away space from a dresser or so forth. So if you have the space, and this is critical, a pocket door, like a barn door, needs twice its space to exist. What does that mean? Twice its space to exist. Well, if the door opening is 2 foot and the door when it's closed is 2 foot, when that door slides into the wall, it needs 2 feet inside the wall without wires or pipes or plumbing or something that you're going to nail through that wall and you're going to lock your door in place. So if you have a 2 foot pocket door, you need 4 foot of wall space that doesn't have electric or plumbing in it. So pocket doors are great space savers. They're hidden. You don't see them. I just did a renovation in my own home. I put a pocket door in my master bathroom. It's fantastic. We love it. It saves space. The door's not swinging in or swinging out. And that's kind of like an interior. It's an innie of the barn doors.
Awesome. So yeah, pocket door could be, and both of these, pocket door and barn door, could be any type of style, but it's the functionality where the pipe is outside of the wall So it could be, the rustic feel that, we're thinking of with barn doors. But it could be any kind of door. It could be glass, right?
Right. And very often the barn doors match the rest of the doors in the house. So if we're doing an interior renovation and someone buys a house full of 2-panel doors with an arch top, and then they have a barn door over their butler pantry or where they keep the coffee maker, it might be that same exact door. It's just hanging on a track, and you push it aside rather than it being on a hinge where it swings open and closed.
Nice.
So that's thank you for the question, Hillary.
You learned about barn doors, ladies and gentlemen. And this is kind of why we're doing it, to answer your guys' questions. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and now Instagram. So definitely put your questions in the comment section. We're going to answer them live with you guys today. We have some questions that came in over the last couple days. We put out a post asking for your guys' questions, and you guys delivered. So we're going to dive into these. Are you ready, Norm?
Let's do it. We got a lot. By the way, I want to thank everybody because I put out that call to action kind of last minute yesterday, just thinking because I wanted to create some good content for this podcast. And thank you to the people who answered. We love this. It actually makes this much easier to do. Plus, I know I'm delivering material that you want to hear about rather than just what I'm hoping you want to hear about.
Oh, that's great. Absolutely. So our good friend Peter asked, is it better to have sub pumps in a house compared to French drains? Which is better?
Good question, Peter. And that's a great question because some pumps and French drains go together, but they could also be completely separate things. Okay. So if you have a French drain, what that means is in a French drain, we're going to talk about interior French drains specifically. So don't everybody, all the haters out there go, but I had a French drain on the outside of my house. Different thing. Interior French drains is where we take your basement slab. So that's the concrete, that's your basement floor that right now touches your basement foundation wall. And we cut a foot of that out all the way around. We dig a big trench. Now, underneath your basement slab is gravel. So water can actually travel back and forth underneath your floor. In that trench, we then put pipe with holes in it, perforated pipe, and a protective covering so soot doesn't clog the pipe up. And then we cover it with gravel, and then we recover that with cement. So now your slab goes back. But we leave a little gap between the concrete pad, and the wall. So there's about a little 1-inch gap. Why we do that for a French drain is because when water finds its way into your foundation walls, it's almost impossible to stop it. You could dig out the outside of your house and foundation waterproof, but who can do that with all your shrubs and your patios and your sidewalks and your front porches and your garage? It's almost impossible to do that after the house is constructed. So what a French drain does is says, look, water's coming in my house through the wall. And then it's rolling down, it's filling my basement, and I'm making my carpet wet. We're going to say, look, we may not be able to stop that water from coming in, but we're going to grab it before it touches the back of the wall, before it touches the insulation, before it touches your rug. It's going to go down into that little gap we left. It's going to go into the gravel and into those pipes, and those pipes are pitched and travel around the room to, Peter, a sump pump. So now we've captured this water that's coming in the house. It's even the water that's underneath the slab where there are no pipes because water finds its own level. So eventually it finds its way to the pipes, that finds its way to the sump well, which is a pit we dig about 3 feet deep. And in that pit is a sump pump. Sump pump is activated by water, turns the pump on, and then that water gets pumped out of your house. So a French drain has to have a sump pump. But some people, old school houses, they have a basement or an unfinished area. They have just a sump pump without a French drain. So that means they don't have that channel cut all the way around the house. They're not going to finish the basement. You do that if you want to finish the basement specifically. But sometimes they just have that hole in the floor with the sump pump. And that saves them in an emergency. If the basement starts filling up with water, the sump pump throws the water out. It's not necessarily going to stop it from ruining your carpet if it was a finished basement. So, Peter, a sump pump is going to get the water out, but doesn't stop the water from filling up the floor. It just it'll stop some of it if it's coming up from the bottom. But if you got water pouring in the basement wall across the room and the sump pump's over here, it's got to make it across your floor to get to the sump pump. Whereas a French drain traps it anywhere around and then sends it to that sump pump and gets rid of it.
So it sounds like, you want the full package. You want the French drain going into a sump pump.
If you're going to finish your basement for sure, and you think you got a water problem, you want to pay for the French drain. Horror story. We just did a very nice client in Glen Rock, New Jersey. We finished their basement. It was an expensive basement renovation. I want to say it's around $80,000 basement renovation. We added a bathroom, created bedrooms, created playrooms, created built-ins. Beautiful. The basement had been completely unfinished. It wasn't an old house. It was say a 50s house that also had an addition on it. Mm-hmm. They've owned the house for 3 years. The basement was completely unfinished, never a drop of water. We finished the basement, paint ready, carpets coming on Friday. It's been a 4-month process. Mm-hmm. Wednesday, we get that 50-year storm. Basement fills up with water. This is an $80,000 basement we just finished.
What happens now?
What happens now? And it was one of those horror stories. Like, oh no. Yeah. Now these people, we told them it wasn't something we did. Mm-hmm. But if I were them, I would think it was something we did. So I said, look, I want you to call other people. Call some basement waterproofing people. Call some other general contractors, because they'll point out my errors very easily. Yeah. They love doing that. Somebody's going to go, oh, that guy didn't do that right, or he shouldn't have cut that hole there. Mm-hmm. Everybody came in and said, there's nothing the contractor did. It was a freak thing. Your water table is coming up now when it didn't before. So 2 things happened. One, we found out why the water started coming in. These people had what's called a seepage pit, and I think we talked about it in one of our outdoor videos. So the seepage pit was outside the house. Mm-hmm. The old owners had to put it in to do the renovation. Mm-hmm. And it collects the water from the gutters and the leaders and takes it to a tank and holds it till it goes away. Mm-hmm. And turns out all those pipes were falling apart and collapsing in the lawn. And so all the water from all the gutters and leaders not only were not going to the seepage tank, were going into the ground around the foundation. So that's why the water was coming in. But to answer your question,
taking everything and dumping it
on so the house in those
pulling it away.
Correct. And in those crazy storms that we used to call them 50 and 100-year storms. That's how the Weather Service determines the number of inches of rain in a short, finite period of time. We're having those every year now. So it was going to happen again. So what we had to do was cut open the brand new walls, cut out the 2x4 studs, have our waterproofing guy come in, cut the slab, and basically retrofit a French drain into the basement we already finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for that situation, that's what you had to do. Now, let's just say the average listener right now is like, you know what? Every once in a while, I do get maybe like, not an inch, but I get some water and I don't have any of these things. What's the process like of putting it in an existing property?
If the property is empty, it's much easier than if the property's finished. Mm-hmm. So, we can go into an unfinished basement and very easily cut a channel in the slab and install a French drain. Mm-hmm. It's usually done in about a day. Nice. It's maybe 2, depending on how big the basement is, and if we're doing what's called a cross cut across the slab. But it's not super intrusive. It's intrusive when we have to cut out walls, raise insulation, move electricity to channel that, and then somebody's got to build it back, which is hopefully us. So it's more complicated if you're building back from a finished room than from an unfinished room.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you, Peter, for your question. Felicia asks, when renovating a kitchen, do you recommend quartz or granite countertops, and why?
All right. Well, I recommend quartz. Quartz is the most common thing we use now, but here's the difference. Granite was the first common, popular, what we call solid surface countertop. Mm-hmm. Granite is a natural stone. It's cut in quarries all over the world. Those quarries are cut into slabs. Those slabs are polished. So what you're getting as your kitchen counter, Mother Nature made, God made. That's how it came out of the ground. It just got shined up and it got cut, and your sinkhole got cut out of it, and it got made and polished, and the countertop edge got rounded to fit your sink. Granite is a natural product. It's 100% natural. It's also porous. Mm-hmm. So it was also sold by the square foot, which was great. So when we used to price out a kitchen, we just measured a square foot of countertops, and you'd pay by the square foot. Mm-hmm. Quartz, on the other hand, is a 90% natural product. And here's what I mean by that. How you manufacture a quartz countertops is you take natural quartz stone, you grind it up into dust, and you put 10% resin in and 90% quartz dust, and you create this really super impervious, non-porous, magical. You can put hot pots on it. You can't break it. It's harder than granite. You can't break it as easy as granite. And you create this product that's superior to granite, and it's man-made, but it's man-made 90% out of natural quartz stone dust. The other cool thing about quartz is it's branded. So you've heard the brands like Silestone, Caesar Stone. Those are brands of quartz. The cool part about quartz is if you buy a Caesar Stone number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in New Jersey, it looks exactly identical to a slab of Caesar Stone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you bought it in California. So the cool part about it is they manufacture it to look like whatever you want. Some quartz is made to look speckly like granite. Some quartz is made to look like Carrara marble. Some quartz is made to look like sparkly, glitter. So quartz is man-made. The colors are consistent. If you ever need another piece, you can find a piece to match. If you ever need another piece of granite, if it's not a common piece of granite, you may not find it. The downside of quartz is it costs a little bit more, and you have to buy it by the slab. So granite, was kind of inexpensive. You could buy what you needed for your kitchen and only what you needed for your kitchen. If you have a kitchen, let's say a slab of quartz is 5 by 10, a big slab. That's 50 square feet. And let's say your kitchen, after we lay it all out and we cut the L's and everything, needs 60 square feet. You're buying 2 slabs. Average cost of a slab of common quartz, $3,000. So by your kitchen being 10 square foot bigger, you went from a $3,000 cost to a $6,000 cost. Can't buy it by the square foot. So that's the only downside. But what we tell people is, look, you own both slabs. Utilize it. The fabrication is not super expensive. So you could take the extra pieces and have them made into windowsill for your kitchen sink. You could have it made into a corner shelf. You could have it made in bathrooms for it to be a shower curb or a bathroom threshold or a corner shelf or a bench. So we can, be creative how we utilize the remainder of the slabs. So I know I got off on a tangent, Felicia, but that's the difference between quartz and granite. And we recommend quartz because it's consistent color. It's non-porous. You don't have to seal it every year where you're technically supposed to with granite, although nobody does. And it's a stronger product and it's consistent and you could always match it. So quartz is the way to go.
Awesome. Great stuff. Our next question is from Kristen. And Kristen asks, what are the top mistakes you see homeowners making in the renovation process?
Trying to do it themselves. So there are times to be a do-it-yourselfer and there are times not. Look, if you have no money, but you need to make a renovation happen, then you do what you got to do. I mean, I respect that. Do what you got to do. But some people are so worried that they're going to, they do it out of fear. They're afraid they're going to get ripped off by a bad contractor. And I think you could mitigate that by doing your due diligence. If you do the research, deep dive research on a contractor and compare them to other contractors, you're not going to have that problem. So that should not be a motivational thing, but it is often. So what people think is they could save money because if I pay that contractor to do the whole job, he's making money on all of it. This is true. This is not Habitat for Humanity. We run a for-profit business and we make a little bit of money on everything we touch and everything we manage. But there's a value to that because we have an expertise that you don't. So what happens is people say, look, I want to hire you to just make the frame, but I have an electrician that I'm going to pay directly, and I have a floor guy, and I'm going to buy the tile myself, and I already bought all the fixtures at Home Depot. They're sitting in my garage, and I'm going to do that. I don't get involved in those jobs because they usually end up unhappy because now the homeowner, who's a general contractor, is managing a project that they have no expertise in. So now you're counting on the expertise of your subcontractors. Guess what, guys? If I could do that, I would stay home, and I'd make a lot of money by doing nothing. But we can't because as a general contractor with a big vision, you see that the plumber is drilling holes through wood to run his pipe that he shouldn't be drilling the holes through. You see when an electrician isn't doing neat work and you're going to fail the electrical inspection. You could see if somebody doesn't pitch underneath a shower drain. So years from now, if your tile ever gets a little leak in it, it then, if it's pitched properly, it's still going to find its way to the drain and not to leak into the room below. So being a general contractor, you also know the codes. You know that when you put up the studs to frame your basement, that every 8 feet, you have to have a piece of sheetrock on the side of the stud touching the concrete block for fire draft stopping. If you're trying to GC a job yourself, what you're going to find is you're tripping over dollars to save pennies. You're going to fail your inspections, and it's not the inspector's job to teach you how to do it right. So I see a lot of homeowners get all upset. Well, the inspector came in and he failed me, and I asked him, well, what do I have to do to fix it? And he said, well, look it up. because it's not the inspector's job to teach you how to do it to code. They're probably a little upset that you didn't hire a professional. So the biggest renovation mistake I see people making is either doing it themselves or getting ahead of themselves. If you call me as a contractor and you say, hey, I'm ready to start my bathroom renovation, I bought all the stuff, it's in the garage, that makes me a little nervous. Not to say we wouldn't take that job, but who measured the tile? Who quantified the waste? Is it going in a herringbone pattern? Is it going in a straight pattern? Because now the waste isn't 10%, the waste is 25%. Who measured the toilet to make sure it's a 12-inch rough-in and it's going to fit over the proper placement of the sanitary pipe that's already in the floor? So you really want a contractor to be involved in helping you. You could buy the stuff directly. I don't need to profit from your tile or your toilets or your sinks or your countertops. I will if I'm managing it and I'm helping you selecting it and I'm handling the deliveries and I'm handling the returns. Then there is a small profit margin in that because we're having 30 conversations with you about all of that stuff. You're welcome to pay for it directly and buy it yourself and save a little bit of money, but have your contractor do the measurements. Have your contractor verify that the sink you bought is going to fit the faucet, that you didn't buy a faucet that has 4-inch hole spread, but your countertop has an 8-inch hole spread. So you want to have the contractor involved in the sourcing of the materials in some way, shape, or form, even if you're going to pay for them directly. So that's probably the second most common thing I see people doing is getting too far ahead of their renovation. They're so excited to buy their tile, and the tile is the last thing I want them thinking about. And I can guide you through what to shop for in what order because of what we need first. Tile comes in usually, if you're not buying something imported, in like a week. So if we're doing an 8-week bathroom renovation, you don't have to have your tile ordered before the renovation starts. We're going to start the bathroom, we're going to frame the space, and we're going to measure it precisely so that you order the amount of tile with the least amount of waste.
Awesome. Great stuff. We have a question that kind of piggybacks on this a little bit. Melissa asks, when and why do you need a structural engineer?
Okay.
So going by based on like hiring the right pieces of the puzzle, right? So when and why do you need a structural engineer?
Okay. Well, structural engineer, sometimes the need for them overlaps with an architect. So most architectural firms have a structural engineer that they work with. So if an architect is designing you a whole house, the architect's drawing the plans, giving you pretty elevations of what it's going to look like from the outside, giving you the footprint of what it's going to look like if you're staring down overhead. The architect helps all of that, and they call out. Where the structural engineer comes in a general renovation is when we need to remove a load-bearing wall and put in a beam. The structural engineer determines what size beam. Does it need to be steel? Can it be a parallam beam? How many feet is it? Does it have to have a post? Does that post have to go to a footing? How does that bear on the existing foundation? So structural engineer you need usually when you're dealing with something structural. I know it sounds obvious, but it's not always. So a structural engineer in renovation is usually for taking out a load-bearing wall, maybe making a ceiling cathedral instead of flat, removing structure or adding. Some people want to remove those lolly columns. You ever see those steel columns in your basement? They're always in the way if you want to put a pool table or a ping pong table or a couch. People ask me to remove those all the time, but you can't remove them with the existing girder that's holding up the house that runs down the center of your basement. But you can get a structural engineer to spec out an I-beam that we could put in to replace the existing beam that might allow you to eliminate one or two of those lolly columns. So that's when we usually deal with a structural engineer. The other time you deal with a structural engineer is oftentimes when there's a problem. So look, my foundation is leaning and cracking and bowing in towards my basement. Something's wrong. You need a structural engineer to investigate that.
Awesome. And this is probably, obvious, but I'm sure all the projects you like, if you see these things, like this is all part of the project for you. This is not something that the general homeowners need to go find a structural engineer. You see XYZ needs to be done, and we need to get a structural engineer. You have one in your database and make sure.
Yeah, it works both ways sometimes, Doug. So what happens is sometimes people are hiring us when they already have their plans drawn. And in their plans, sometimes the structural engineering is already done. However, if we encounter a problem, if we open up a house to do a kitchen renovation and we think the ceiling joists are going one way and they're going a completely other way, well, now we need a structural engineer to change the plan. The beam can't go where it was going to go. Or we find there's a piece of steel and we can't get a plumbing pipe through it. So we need a structural engineer to maybe help us modify that steel or how the building is held up so that we can get the plumbing and the HVAC in where we otherwise wouldn't have had a problem.
Awesome. Great stuff. Melissa also asks, what's the difference between zoning and building permits, and how much do they usually approximately cost?
Ooh, Melissa, very good questions. All right. So if you are going to do an internal renovation in your house, some of it's permittable, means you need a permit for certain things and certain things you don't. So changing cabinets, no permits required. Changing flooring, no permits required. We're talking about New Jersey right now. Some of this is universal United States code, but I can only speak to what's adapted in New Jersey. If you want to change windows or doors that are going into the same opening, you do not need a permit. And as of 2018, you no longer need a permit for direct replacement kitchen, direct replacement bathroom, roofing, or siding. So now you don't need permits for those. We used to need permits for those. Nice. What you do need permits for is any interior renovation that involves structural changes, taking down that wall, beam, making a door or window bigger, because there's this thing above a door or window called a header, and that header takes the weight of the house so it doesn't crush your door or your window and distributes it around the door or the window. That header has to be spec'd out by an architect. So those are the projects you need. Also, if you're doing plumbing and electric work that's new, you may be doing a direct replacement kitchen, but if you're adding 7 new recessed lights, you technically need an electrical permit. If you're adding new circuits to support the refrigerator or the countertops, you technically need an electrical permit. If you're replacing a bathroom, taking out a toilet, putting it back, no plumbing permits required. But if you're moving the toilet across the room, eliminating a tub, creating a walk-in shower, now you do need a plumbing permit. So circling back to Melissa's question, those are all considered building permits. A zoning permit requires anything that leaves the footprint of your home. So that means you want to add a little tiny front porch or a front stoop, you need a zoning permit. You want to add a sidewalk, you want to replace a driveway, you want to add a fence, a deck, or an addition, you need a zoning permit, because now the zoning official has to review, and it's so complicated. It's not just, well, my front yard setback. A front yard setback is how many feet from the front curb or the front sidewalk easement that you're allowed to build. Well, that's easy. You can take a tape measure and figure out if you got 30 feet. But there's also percentage of lot development. There's impervious coverage. That's how much of your ground are you covering that water can't seep into the earth naturally. So a driveway is not impervious coverage. A structure is not impervious coverage. Grass is, a driveway and a structure is impervious coverage. That's something that the water can't permeate and get into the ground. So there's so many complicated factors when you're going outside the structure of the house that the zoning department reviews to make sure you're in compliance before you're approved for the building permits to be reviewed. So you may still need a building permit for the deck, but you need a zoning permit first to make sure you're even allowed to do the deck before the construction official is allowed to review the building permit. Hope I explained that clear.
Absolutely. Now, this is a Doug question to tag on to this. Say you wanted to expand your driveway. You said like sidewalks and driveways. What it would be like, hey, I'm gonna expand my driveway I'm gonna make it wider, an extra foot, 2 feet. No one will notice. I'm gonna do it. What could be the penalties for doing without getting the zoning permits?
It depends on if they enforce it. So oftentimes they could charge you $2,500 a day until it's remedied.
Wow.
So if you did the driveway and you got caught and they said you got to fix this, if they're really upset with you, because if you were either not nice about it, you were a jerk, you went behind their back, and then you didn't handle getting caught correctly, they could technically fine you $2,500 a day until it's remedied. So if you can get somebody in there to cut that driveway out in 3 or 4 days, you're going to run up 10 grand real quick.
Wow.
And to answer the second half of Melissa's permit question, is the costs unable to define that for you, because I found every municipality has a different cost structure and they don't make any sense. So they're based on a percentage of the cost of the job, because when you fill out a building permit, you have to write what it's going to cost. So they use a percentage of that. They count every electrical fixture and every plumbing fixture I have to fill in on a building permit. So if you have 1 to 10 electrical items, your permit gets added this number on. If you have 10 to 20 of them, your permit gets this dollar amount added on. And then there's other fees. So, but to give you an example, we did I think a $1.6 million new construction home in Wyckoff about 6 years ago. And the permit was about, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000. But we also did a little tiny $200,000 add a level in Fair Lawn, and that permit was $7,000. So for me to speak to a permit cost, it's just something I can't do because every town is so different.
Awesome. Great stuff. So we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Now, it's very easy for us to pull up your live questions on Facebook and YouTube. Not as easy on Instagram, but we have one. We'll say it here on Instagram. Our good friend Glenn Kaparian of Kaparian Floor and Roofing, Carpet and Flooring asks, what types of flooring do you usually suggest for basements?
See, I know that's a rhetorical question, Glenn. Glenn Caprellian is a great partner of ours. We actually tried to buy most of our flooring specifically for basement finishings through Caprellian because they do a great job. They have a great showroom. You could send your clients in to take a look. They have a wide variety of different price points, I should say, and different quality levels and different looks. So Glenn knows the answer to this. So what we recommend for basement flooring is what's called LVP or LVT, which is luxury vinyl plank. We like vinyl plank flooring for basements for a couple of reasons. One, they're waterproof. Two, if you buy a good brand, it has either a true layer of cork on the bottom or a true layer of MDF, which actually adds a little warming quality because basement floors can be cold. If you have a water event, you don't have to throw it away. You have to lift it up, dry it out, and reinstall it, but you don't have to throw it in the dumpster like you would carpeting or hardwood flooring. People can tile basements, but it is cost prohibitive because to lay tile on an imperfect concrete slab, you have to do very often some expensive floor leveling. So by the time you charge the labor to install tile, purchase the tile, and charge the labor to do floor leveling, you could be $20, $30 a square foot. So if you're 1,000 square foot basement, which isn't that big, $30,000 could be your flooring costs when you go to start to finish your basement. That's just the floor. That's without anything else. Whereas a luxury vinyl plank has a lot of price points around the $5 to $10 a square foot range for purchasing, not including install, but it conforms to minor imperfections in the existing concrete slab. So if we're installing vinyl plank flooring in your basement and there's a little divot or a little lump, we'll chisel that lump off, or we'll fill a little divot with some filler, but we don't have to do a complete floor leveling. The vinyl plank over time, as it softens, will actually conform to the minor imperfections. You're not going to feel them, and it's a great product. Carpeting is probably the most cost-effective thing to do in a basement, but it's also the one thing that everybody's ripping out and throwing away every time there's a moisture event. And if you have a damp basement, even if you don't have a moisture event, sometimes that carpet could have that musty basement smell. So Glenn, long story short, we like buying our vinyl plank flooring from Caprellian, and we recommend that for all our basement refinish customers.
Awesome. Great stuff. And that'll be our one Instagram question of the day. So if you're on Instagram and you want to ask a question, please do it on YouTube or Facebook on the live stream there, because we can bring it on live with you guys today. And yeah, everyone here on Facebook and YouTube, please put your questions in the comment section. We're answering live with you today on the ReModCast. So let's get back to our preloaded questions here that people asked yesterday. We got one from Sharon. Sharon asks, how important is your entranceway? We are thinking of expanding our entrance and changing the round pillars to be more modern and square pillars. Do you think the investment will increase the overall home value by improving the curb appeal?
Good question, Sharon. And I think there's a couple different ways I can answer this. So by expanding your entrance, that means putting an addition on the front of your house, if I'm understanding it correctly. That's often cost prohibitive and also prevented by zoning laws. So unless you're in a really big piece of property where you technically would be allowed to add make your foyer or your entrance bigger on the front of your house, it's oftentimes not allowed. Now, changing the columns from an old round column to a square, more modern recessed panel column, I don't know that you're going to get your dollar for dollar value back. So if you spend $5,000 to give it a facelift, change the columns, maybe change the exterior light fixtures, change the front door and the knob to give it that curb appeal, I think the curb appeal will help the house sell in comparison to other homes. So you're definitely going to get an edge over the person who did not update their entrance. I don't know that you'll get the $5,000-$7,000 necessarily back dollar for dollar. You could. That's a pretty small amount for as a percentage to a housing sale around here. But where you're going to pick up the advantage is just what you were suspecting, Sharon, is on that curb appeal. So if somebody wants to buy a house that feels more modern, so if they're looking at two houses in the same price point and yours feels modern and fresh and looks great from the street, you're going to have that edge.
Awesome. Great stuff. And based on the other question we were asking before with the zoning and the permits, those pillars are already there. So you probably need minimal permits.
No permits. So that's a great question. So if we're just taking two pillars that are there and replacing them, repairing them, or facing them, no permit is required. If we're taking those light fixtures, those sconces, or that hanging pendant and swapping them out, no permit is required. If we're changing the front door in the same opening, no permit is required. If we're changing the bluestone on the front slab, no permit is required. So those are great projects that add curb appeal, not super expensive, add to that resale value of the house by at least giving it curb appeal, even if it's not dollar for dollar ROI.
Awesome. Great stuff. We have a live question from Facebook. Joe from Facebook asks, do you use a different type of mortar and grout on a radiant heated tile floors? And is there a brand that you recommend? I hope I said that right.
No, you did. And Joe, that is a great question. And we actually go by manufacturer's recommendation. So the most common grout brand we use out there is TEC Tech grout. But there are specific grouts and mortars that are made to handle the heating factor. Now, look, most grouts are a masonry-based product, and they're going to be fine no matter what. So if you use regular grout, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be all right anyway. But I can't speak honestly to a specific brand and model of heat-resistant or grout I would use over heated floors. So that's actually a great question that I don't have a great answer for. So I would actually have to look that up because we don't run into that very often.
Awesome. Well, piggybacking on the heated floors, Jen asks, how do heated floors work and what's involved? Can you have a heated wood floor?
All right, Jen, thank you for the question. 2 types of heated floors. One is true, what we call real radiant heat. And what that means is that you have a hot water heating system in your house. You have a boiler in your basement and you have those hot water baseboards that run around your house. That means you already have a boiler down there heating water and circulating it through your house. So you kind of need that, whether you have to buy it new, depends on how important heated floors are for you or not. And then that water gets circulated to pipes in the floor. So it's plastic pipes that run through the floor. They can be applied from underneath as a retrofit, or they can be applied from above, and then you cover those pipes with either what we call sleepers. So we create these channels with wood that the pipes sit in between. And when you do it that way, and you fill it in with a filler, you can put wood over it, Jen. So you could have many of the luxury homes in Franklin Lakes and Wyckoff and Ridgewood have true water radiant heated floors with wood over the top. Now, the second and the more common type of heated floors that we deal with on renovations is what we call electric floor warming. So electric floor warming, if there's enough square footage, can add some radiant heat. But we tell people it's more of a luxury item, feels good to the feet, takes the cold out of the tile, and we typically tile over floor warming. So that's the most common thing we go over. Electric floor warming is ceramic, porcelain tile that we use the correct mortar for. But oftentimes a regular power grout will work for that. And that's more common. And yes, you could do wood over that also, but it's a different application. So this is wire, right? It's heated wire that's running electric current through it that's heating it up like an electric stovetop element. You don't want to run nails through that. Neither do you want to run nails through the water pipes that we talked about in the true radiant heat. So in order to do wood flooring that has to be nailed down, we have to create these sleepers where we lay little flat boards on the floor, like I mentioned, alluded to. You put either your electric floor warming wires or your plumbing water heat pipes in those channels, fill them in, and then do your wood flooring over it. But the person installing your wood floorings got to make sure he's being really precise where he's putting those nails. Those nails got to be in the sleepers and not in the wires or the water pipes.
Awesome. Great stuff. You're knocking them out of the park today. You're on fire. You're on a roll. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So if you at home have a question, comment, or concern, now is your chance to get a live answer from Norm Rieger himself on the HH ReModCast. We got a couple more questions that people asked yesterday, but we want to open up the floor to you guys at home. Like, now's like your last chance to put your questions in the comment section. We'll answer them live with you today. We got one more question from Melissa. Melissa asks, what is the difference roughly in the cost per square foot between new construction or renovation?
You know, Melissa, that's a tough question to answer because, you know, it's based on geographic area. It's great. It's based on level of finish.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest difference in the cost per square foot is the foundation factor.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm renovating an existing house and I'm knocking it, even if I'm knocking it all the way down to the foundation, the cost per square foot to renovate that house is the same as the cost per square foot to put an addition.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the cost per square foot to put the addition might even be more than that because we're digging a new foundation to add the addition. If we're going straight up, that's why attic levels are a little more cost effective than bump outs, because attic levels don't require any groundwork. We're not bringing machines to dig holes. We're not doing footings. We're not doing slabs. We're not doing CMU block or poured foundation walls. In our area, you know, and it's so geographically specific, because even numbers that I'm quoting right now, if you're listening to me in South Jersey or Pennsylvania, you're gonna think it's insane. Like, I quote $200 a square foot as a baseline, bottom, low, medium quality cost per square foot renovation. And how that number works is almost magical, because nobody knows, because in that isn't just things that we buy by the square foot, right? So we're buying lumber sorted by the square foot. You know, you count number of doors, you count the number of plumbing fixtures, you count the number of electrical fixtures. You're buying your flooring by the square foot, but then you have siding, you have roofing, you have heating and cooling systems. So how does that somehow work out to a square foot number? It just does. But it only works out to a square foot number if the renovation, in my experience, is 1,500 square foot or above. And you say, well, where'd you come up with that? Well, think about it this way. If I tell you I can do an addition on your house for $200 a square foot, and we're going to do 1,000 square foot addition, and let's say it's going to cost you $200,000, makes sense, right? Now you say, Norm, I want to do a little tiny addition to add a bathroom off of my kitchen. It's only going to be 5 by 10. So now I'm going to come and dig a foundation, pour a foundation, build a structure, put roofing, siding, windows, and gutters, and then finish the bathroom. But it's only 5 by 10, right? So what's that, 50 square foot, Doug?
Yeah.
50 square foot times $200 a square foot. What is that?
It's like, what, $10,000?
Right. So can I do a brand new bathroom and an addition on your house for $10,000?
You heard it here first.
Yeah. No, you didn't. So that's why that cost per square foot is there's an economy of scales attached to that. So I find and it also works the other way. If you're doing a really big home that's 4,000 square foot, we could keep the cost per square foot down as long as you're not doing luxury finishes. If you're doing 5-foot built-in sub-zero refrigerators and, you know, Carrera marble tops and high-end finishes, coffered ceilings, intricate crown moldings, well, your cost per square foot is going to go up even though it got bigger. But if you're staying with the same level of finishes, moderate, say, finishes at the $200 square foot number, and you go to a 4,000 square foot house, that 4,000 square foot renovation isn't necessarily going to cost $800,000. It might be a little bit less, because we might be able to dial that square footage cost down into the high ones. But the way the price increases and inflation has been lately, that's almost too low of a number around here. And again, if anybody hears this podcast that lives out of state, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, even parts of Connecticut that aren't the lower Greenwich part of Connecticut, you're going to say, wow, that sounds just insanely expensive. It has to do with where we live. We live in the New York metropolitan area, whether we like it or not. And all the costs to build are associated with the cost to, you know, live and pay workers around here.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Great stuff. Even Joe on Facebook is saying, great job, Norm. You are the man, and we agree. So thank you, Joe, for tuning in. Thanks for your question. We are live, guys, and we're coming down to the end of the podcast. So now is your absolute last chance. If you have a question, comment, or concern on Facebook, on YouTube, or Instagram, please put it in the comment section. We'll answer it live. Norm, you've been doing a great job. You're on fire. You've been rattling off great answers today. Based on the things we've talked about, anything coming to mind that you'd like to share now with anyone? Anything that, based on what we've talked about today, that you want to, maybe give people an update or elaborate more on?
Yeah, I got one more topic I'd love to cover because it comes up a lot, and it's often becomes controversial. So, open concept kitchens. Everybody wants open concept kitchens. We get asked all the time to take down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room, and more intrusively, sometimes between the kitchen, the dining room, and the front living room. So you're basically taking those 3 rooms and creating one big space. It's beautiful. My kitchen's going to be bigger. Your kitchen's going to be smaller. That's what people don't realize.
Interesting.
You, by taking away the walls, made your kitchen smaller. We say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, number one, your kitchen's not getting bigger or smaller, right? The exterior walls of the house are the same. But when you have a kitchen with 3 walls or 3.5 walls, those walls are filled with a stove, a refrigerator, a sink, a dishwasher, counter space, cabinet space. You take down all the walls where there's only 2 left, and you have to still fit all that stuff onto 2 walls. You have less counter space. You have less cabinet space. You have less ability to spread out your appliances. So the contradiction to open concept is my kitchen's going to get bigger. That's like saying I own a convertible, and when I put the top down, my car's going to get bigger. It doesn't. It actually gets smaller. You're losing part of the vehicle. It's the same thing with open concept kitchens. They're beautiful to look at because you have this open floor plan that feels great. You can add a big old island. That helps. That can make up for some of the cabinet and countertop square footage. So that's a way we mitigate that.
Nice.
But that wall space is so valuable that if you don't have a big enough kitchen, think about it. An average small refrigerator is 30 to 36 inches, call it 3 foot. The dishwasher's 2 foot. Sink's about 3 foot. Stove's about 2.5, 30 inches. So call it 3 foot. If you take your kitchen and you will now only have 2 10-foot walls and one of them has a window in it, you're actually really reducing your storage, your countertop, and your ability to spread out your appliances. So open concept, beautiful. You need a big house to do it because oftentimes we have people that pay architects to draw these beautiful kitchen renovations because they want to take down that wall. They need that structural engineer, Melissa, and they want to get that beam drawn so that they can have that open concept. And then they go, well, now I want to maximize my kitchen.
There's no wall to do it.
You minimized it by your plan. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be beautiful, but you have to sacrifice some storage, some counter space, some appliance placement by doing it. So the big misconception of open concept kitchens is your kitchen get bigger. Nope. Your kitchen, unfortunately, gets smaller.
Yeah. And you're basically you're expanding. I guess the living room would be what you're really trying to make bigger, right? You're trying to knock down that wall to make your living room bigger, but you're sacrificing.
You're just expanding the view. That's all you're doing. You're taking down walls that are often full with electrical outlets, plumbing pipes, duct work, and you're paying a lot of money to make that go away so that you have a more open view. You can see the living room from the kitchen from the living room. You can see the kids while you're, baking on the island. It's like a Norman Rockwell painting. But you are losing. You have to be willing to sacrifice cabinet space. You have to be willing to sacrifice countertop space, and you have to be willing to sacrifice appliances. Maybe you want that. Maybe you could afford that 36-inch Wolf range, and you're getting to the point where you can have that 48-inch Sub-Zero refrigerator or freezer. You start taking down walls. Unless you got a big house, you eliminated your ability to do that, unfortunately. So you just have to be aware. People get caught up in open concept, and everybody thinks it's bigger, and it's not.
Awesome. This is great stuff. So, I'm in the market. We're house hunting, and a lot of the houses that we look at, we're looking at the old-fashioned traditional living room, kitchen, dining room. I feel like dining rooms are a thing of the past. So right away, when we're going into these properties, the older ones, we're like, oh, maybe we could take this wall down, and it's usually the kitchen or the dining room wall. Are opening up the dining room, is that a good idea? Like, I mean,
if you don't want a formal dining room, then your kitchen can overflow into that space. So you might be losing that wall that separates the kitchen and the dining room. But maybe that back wall where a patio door might be or whatever, your kitchen can now roll out because you're going to change the flooring so that it feels like one room. You don't need the formal. You can still have an eat-in table, or you can have a big island with stools that carry into there. But if you're willing to give up the formal dining room space, you are losing one wall in the kitchen, but you're gaining some of the walls of the dining room. You could even add shallow cabinetry on the far side of the wall opposite the kitchen. and you could keep stuff in there that you don't use to cook with, stuff you use just to entertain.
Mhm.
You have a little 12-inch countertop that you use like for buffet serving or to just keep decorations. So there's things we could do as long as you're willing to let the kitchen flow into the dining room. If you're not willing to let the kitchen flow into the dining room, removing that wall impacts you the same way. You're losing some potential wall space, cabinet space, appliance space.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you see it a lot. Like, do you think like eat-in dining rooms by themselves, like standalone dining rooms, are a thing of the past?
Not necessarily. It depends on your culture. So if you're that family, even if you're a young family, you're in your 30s, but you're taking over the family holidays and you have 13 people over, not just for one holiday, not just for Thanksgiving, but you have those 13 to 25 people that come over every Easter, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, whatever your holiday are, and you're used to, and you're the entertaining and you're the hub of the whole family with all the kids and the nephews and nieces and boyfriends and girlfriends, then sometimes the formal dining room is what you need, unless you're just going to temporarily set up a dining room in your living room for those holidays. But if you're doing it more than once or twice a year, that becomes kind of, pain in the neck. So I don't know if they're a thing of the past, but they're a thing of the past as far as the mindset that they're required. It's kind of like having a bathtub. Used to be like, you need a bathtub or you can't sell the house. It's not necessarily true anymore. A lot of the Gen Z, they're not bathing their kids in bath water anymore. Everybody's getting a shower or they're getting washed in the sink.
Yeah.
So, so some of the old school thought processes is that I need to have a formal dining room, a formal living room. I agree with you. Those are a thing of the past, but it may not be a thing of the past practically for your lifestyle.
Good stuff. Great stuff. This is the last chance for live questions on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Last chance to put your questions in. We got one more live question from Connor. Connor asks, when you take down walls and cabinets for an open concept space, are you sometimes building a bigger island to make up for the lost space?
Yes, sir. That is what you can do. If you're taking down the walls, you very oftentimes, Connor, can create a much larger island that would have fit within those walls. So it does help make up for base cabinetry, and it does help up making for countertop space. So that is the one mitigator that we have to use in our tool belt, no pun intended, for taking down walls in that open concept.
Awesome. And like the jobs that I've seen with you, I've seen you put microwaves in the island. I see you put dishwashers in the island, garbage pullouts. So like those are, you definitely put a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, the island will save you for everything except for major appliances and wall cabinetry.
Awesome. Great stuff. This has been awesome. This is your very last chance if you want to put your question in there. Also, in other news, Norm, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but you definitely want to check out you definitely want to, if you're not following our Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn of HH Remodeling, you definitely want to do that ASAP. But also, there's a new page. There's another page in town.
There is a new page in town.
Do you want to go over that today? You want to put the word out, or you want to save it for next time?
Well, we could tease it a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, last year, HH Remodeling Company merged with, purchased, rebranded, all of the above, with a plumbing company. So we had a master plumber with over 25 years of experience, one of the best guys in the world. We formed a team together, and now it's my company called, we share the company. It's not my company, but it's partially my company, called HH Plumbing and Heating LLC. And we just let it kind of run itself for the first year. I needed to learn how to be the owner of a plumbing company, and I needed to get a feel for how it was going before I really pushed it out there in the world. I didn't want to spend a lot of money on advertising. I wanted to spend my first year owning a plumbing company and learning what it's like to own a plumbing company. But now we are finally getting out there in social media. So we created a webpage. We now have just this week, we launched the Instagram and Facebook pages, and you'll see teasers out there that I'll be forwarding in my social media. So if you see HH Plumbing and you see a little logo or a post, I ask you to please go to the page, like the account on Facebook, like the account on Instagram, comment, share. The great thing about this plumbing company versus the remodeling company is, as a remodeling firm, we're booked, like we said, 3 to 6 months out, depending on the size of your project. Our plumbing company can come out and do service. We're not at the 24-hour emergency service level at this point in time. I don't know if we will be. It's always a possibility for the future. But if your water heater is bad, we're not going to make you wait a week to come change your water heater. We're going to come out the next day or the day after as quick as we can to change your water heater. If you have a leaky pipe, if you have a pipe burst this winter from frozen pipes, shut your water off. Give us a call at HH Plumbing and Heating LLC. We'll get somebody out there to mitigate the problem, get you all squared away so you don't have any leaks or burst pipes. You have a toilet that won't stop running. All those little problems, day-to-day stuff, we can take those on in a really short notice period with HH Plumbing, which is a luxury. And I'm not used to that because I haven't been able to do that for years with the renovation company. So thank you for watching, following. Please like our pages for HH Plumbing Heating LLC. And also, I'm going to say this again, we're really trying to build the YouTube base out there, guys. So a lot of you guys see the teasers to this podcast, which is going to be posted in its entirety on YouTube. You're probably not even hearing this if you're not watching it on YouTube because you're seeing this in an Instagram clip. But I need you to go to YouTube, like, follow, make any type of comment, hopefully not negative, but really any type of comment is a good comment when it comes to those algorithms, because we're really trying to grow our YouTube base organically. And the more of our followers, our faithful followers from the HH Renovation Nation on Facebook and Instagram that can go over to the YouTube, you don't have to watch the full video if you don't want, but watch a little bit of it, like, comment, share, tag a friend. It will really help me out. So that's my favor I'm asking to you guys out there in the Renovation Nation.
Awesome. So there's your call to action, ladies and gentlemen. We need your help. Definitely go check out the YouTube, and that's at HH Remodeling right there on the screen. And for the new plumbing Instagram page, that's going to be HH_plumbing_heating. So yeah, check those out. And we appreciate all the help that you guys do on the social media, and all these questions today were great from you guys. So thank you again for that. We got one more question from Joe because it has to do with the plumbing. Joe asked, what service locations for HH? What are the service locations for HH Plumbing?
Great question. I see that's Joe Merg. I know Joe. Thanks for asking, Joe. So yes, we will service all of Bergen County, some of Passaic, some of Essex, some of Sussex. So we're not going really deep. We try to stay within 45 minutes to an hour of our home base, which is Hawthorne, New Jersey. But we'll happily come to Lyndhurst, which I believe that's where my friend Joe is inquiring from. Awesome. But we have a much wider range. We like to stay within an hour, whatever possible. For our good customers, we even go down the shore.
Great.
But mostly within an hour radius. So that covers a few of the counties in North Jersey, Joe.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you all for asking your questions and being part of this. Norm, any other things going on? Anything you want to let the people know before we go?
No, this was a great show. I think I'm even sick of hearing me talk at this point. So they must be too. Thank you for listening. Nothing else for this particular show. Nothing to promote, tag, or promo right now. But hopefully we'll do one of these soon. And stay tuned for another ride-along video shoot, hopefully next week.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you next time on the HH ReModCast.